Welcome back to today's show here on Dublin City FM with me, Paul Merriman from askpaul.ie. And here in studio today, I'm joined by Suzanne McGuinness from On Post Insurance. And Suzanne is here to talk about the subject that we don't really want to talk about, which is death and what happens afterwards. Now, to be fair, from a financial point of view, what happens afterwards, we're not here from a spiritual point of view today. The reason you're here today, Suzanne, is to talk to us, myself and the listeners, in relation to some really cool research you guys did in On Post in relation to Irish people's feeling towards funerals and death. Bring me through some of the key findings or the surprises from the research.
Sure. So we did this research back in February in conjunction with Red Sea. And some of the findings for us were the majority of adults over 50 are actually comfortable discussing death with loved ones. And 3 in 4 have had conversations about end of life and their preferences and their wishes. 68% though haven't made any plans for their funeral.
Okay.
And then what we found is 94% actually worry about their funeral costs and how it could potentially be a financial burden on their family.
Right, okay. So it's that financial burden piece, I suppose, that we'll get into in a couple of minutes. But I think what we're talking, when I put the Instagram post up the other day, asking people about their funeral songs, I got an overwhelming response. I was actually quite shocked at how many people gave me their funeral songs. That means that we are thinking about it. It's in the back of our head. Obviously, it's not a nice subject to talk about or think about too long. But while you're thinking about the song and what you want to choose, and a few people actually put after the song, everyone better be crying, everyone better be upset, messing, obviously, just to say that they'd be obviously missed. But it's going a little bit step further than picking a song with your family, isn't it? It's about having that conversation. Number one, from a financial planning point of view, my biggest tip is to make sure everybody has a will, to make sure they understand what their assets are doing. But I suppose On Post have your own product. On Post Insurance has their own product, which is the funeral insurance, which is typically for people over 50 years of age, that might relieve that financial burden you're speaking about and what your research actually shows.
Exactly. And just while you're on the point of wills, so 60% of our respondents had a will. In our research, I found 60% of people of our respondents actually have a will.
Okay.
But only 12% of those actually outlined the funeral preferences within their will. Okay,
so people are building wills saying, I want everything to go to my husband, my wife, my partner, spouse, my children in whatever way, but they're not actually really given the song, or they're not given how they want to be buried maybe. Because that's the other thing from your point of view, from the research, my biggest surprise was that 47% of people wanted to be cremated versus only 39% getting buried. That's massively on the rise as well then, cremations.
It is, exactly, and that was a finding, and we did the research a couple of years and it's definitely gone up.
It's gone up again, okay.
Yeah.
Right, very good. So let's go back to the funeral cover. So your research is saying that people are kind of a little bit afraid of the financial burden it puts on their family, and I can understand there where that comes from. But I think I remember saying this to you guys before when I was working with you guys on the funeral cover product. I remember thinking that majority of people probably don't have funeral cover, or have, if they don't have any insurance, life insurance in particular, they're probably afraid of it because most people consider life insurance applications, medicals, questionnaires, and the older the people are, the more likely they are to have a health complaint or something's gone wrong and they don't want the hassle. But there's no hassle with this product. You can just literally take the policy out. You must pay the premium for 2 years and then your benefit kicks in.
Exactly. I think one of the key benefits of this product is that it's simplicity.
Yeah.
It's so simple. Literally, it allows people to financially prepare for the cost by taking out the policy, and they're going to give that reassurance to their family that they'll be, it will all be looked after. Basically all you have to be is between the age of 50 and 75.
Great.
Reside in the Republic of Ireland, and then you can pay as little as €15 a month.
Great. Okay.
Over the course of for the rest of your life, or up until you're 85, and then you don't have to pay any
again. So if you pay the premium from say 60 to 85 years of age, you're still alive, and you stop paying the premium at 85 and you're still around at 95, you pass away, the policy still gets paid out at 95th, when you're dead at 95.
Exactly, and you don't need to worry about having to answer any complicated medical questions or get a doctor's report.
Yeah, they're the big things I think that stop people probably applying that they think they have to, but it's great that they don't.
Exactly.
Which takes down another kind of what you call barrier for entry to people. I think the big thing here for as the kind of the research carries out is that financial burden. I think nobody wants to be considering the financial burden to their family. And I know there's loads of different arrangements you can get. You can go to social welfare, funeral directors will allow you pay back over time, but that's not something that most people want to leave behind them, is that type of burden, is it?
Exactly. It's haven't been through it myself. It's very upsetting, stressful, emotional time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great policy for people to just ease that burden at a sad time where they don't need to think about it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And then just a couple of terms and conditions people are wondering here. You said they paid the premium for 2 years, and I know I asked this question on my Instagram page as well about people and preparing for funeral costs, etc. And some were saying just leave it in the bank. But, I think if you're 50 years of age, and I think the policy is about there's about $6,500 as average funeral cost, but if you're getting about $4 or $5 worth of cover off on post insurance, you'd want to be saving for 25 or 30 years, €15 a month before you break even. So obviously, if you take the policy out and you're paying €15 a month and something happens to you after the 2 years, the full payment is made to whatever you're insured for. So financially, it does probably make sense, and especially if you have any ailments. So can we talk listeners through what happens if I've had cancer in the past or a heart attack in the past? I'm not asked about it.
Not answer any of those questions. Literally, you pay your premium every month. Once
up until your 85th birthday, yeah.
Up until your 85th birthday, exactly. And then, the policy pays out the chosen lump sum benefit on death once the policy's been active for at least 2 years.
Well, okay, right,
yeah,
okay.
So the policy has to be active for 2 years. And if you pass away within that 2 year period, your dependents will receive the funds that you've paid in.
Okay.
So you won't lose it. So
exactly. So if you're paid in less than 2 years and you pass away in the first 18 months, say, you're going to just get the premiums refunded. So it's not like it's a profit centre.
Exactly. And it just to point, like, the maximum cover is €30,000, and that the monthly premiums stay the same for the term of your policy. So you can't decide halfway through to increase it. It stays the same. But it's that consistency. And,
but likewise, the
simplicity.
On post insurance can't write you and say your premium is doubling either, so it's the same fixed cost right the way through.
Exactly.
So another thing not to worry about. Okay, so moving back onto the survey then. So if you look at the funeral costs in Ireland, expectations versus reality, and again, I thought this was really good for the consumer to have a look at. So the expectations were pretty much really similar to what the actual cost of funerals were. People estimated 6,400, actual cost of 6,250. And that's what the average cost of funerals are throughout the country. Exactly,
and that really depends on where you live, and I suppose the other determinant is how big your family is,
Yeah, okay. Okay, so back to the actual survey and the findings here. What else is popping out at you for what people are thinking around funerals in Ireland today?
Well, just 60% now are opting for a religious ceremony.
Oh, well.
Whereas that would have been a lot higher in the past.
Yeah, especially going back more probably 10 or 20 years ago, would have been much higher.
Exactly. 33% were more thinking like, civil type of ceremony, and then 7% don't want to think about it.
Yeah, they're just not even going there.
Exactly.
And I can understand why, because obviously you mentioned it wrong. It's not exactly the best topic to be talking about, but it's something that people have to talk about all the time. I did see as well that shaking hands and expressing sympathy seen as the most common Irish tradition. So just in fairness, it goes through awful lot to do with what happens when people come to that awkward stage of the actual funeral mass as well, and what you should be doing. Let's talk about what people are wearing. I honestly was shocked by this one as well. I can't believe how many people don't wear black and white. I just thought it was a done thing.
Yeah, no, 76% of people now don't think it's important to wear black to a funeral, but I think that's a shift in focus for people, that funerals are more about celebrating people's life now rather than going everyone dressed in black and mourning.
And personally, I'm up for that. I think that's a really good way to do it if you can, but obviously involves the circumstances, the age, the life, and what the circumstances around the funeral are, in fairness to people. So it's not going to be it's a case for everybody.
Of course.
But let's talk about then going back to the financial impact as well. I asked on my Instagram followers some questions in relation to funerals, costs, etc. And the biggest thing that came through was, number one, the importance of the will, which you've mentioned. A lot of people have the will. They're specifying what they want to happen in the will, but not necessarily specifying what they want to happen actually on the day of the funeral, so what their preferences are, which I can understand why. The next thing is probably from an inheritance point of view, or inheritance tax point of view, what they should do. So I think what we're trying to get through from the team today's show is that, although it's a very difficult conversation, I do think that surveys like this, they do help people break down the conversation. And hopefully today's show and what On Post Insurance are doing here, although yes, there's a product behind it, it's funeral cover, you can cover yourself to make sure that financial burden's not there. What I love about this is that it's giving people the tools to maybe have the conversation and take the survey apart and be asking and talking about it with maybe family and friends, or maybe someone else might be a bit older in the family and you might be concerned about what their wishes are. And a great way to maybe bring up the topic is did you see the on-post insurance survey? They said X amount about cremations. What would your wishes be? What would your song be? My song would be this. I think it's a nice way for families to maybe approach a subject where it's sometimes awkward.
Exactly. People don't want to think about it. It's quite sad, but at the same time you can see people are really concerned that they come out to that statistic about 94% of people worry about it. If you take care of it and you have a policy like this, you don't need to worry about it, and then you can enjoy and just think about what wishes you have.
I think you're extremely right, and what we always love about financial planning point of view when I'm talking to clients, and I'll always say to a client when they come in and sit down in front of us, is that this is cradle to grave. Today is the cradle start, where you're starting your financial plan, you're starting your financial journey. But unfortunately, there's only two things in life are guaranteed, which are debt and taxes. And this, in fairness, this product does cover a little bit of that piece from a debt point of view, and the funeral and the cost, and taking that burden away. Suzanne, thanks a million for joining me today, and especially for coming into the studio. I do appreciate you taking the time. Although it's not an easy topic to discuss, I do feel that you provided some excellent pieces of advice for listeners. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Paul.